to On the Box on the radio with a wee bit of an intro first up here, though. Yes, meanwhile, on The Walking Dead, well, actually, we'll be talking about The Walking Dead very shortly because a new episode aired in the States this week. And to talk with us more about TV and all those associated bits and bobs of news around the Goggle Box, it is, of course, Chris Philpott at stuff.co.nz. Morning, Chris.
Hey, how are you? I feel like we should have one of those previously on the box on the radio.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Or something like that, and then play a bunch of clips from the last few weeks whenever you hear a theme song from a show, you know, because that's how they always go. It's a bit of a theme song, and then you get that, the previously on, whatever the show was, the deep voice. They hire the same guy for every show,
do.
I think. But
Maybe we'll get that guy, Ted Williams, who was the ex-homeless voiceover guy, who now seems to be doing quite well in the States. He seems to be for hire.
Well, why do we need to use him? Let's just cruise around the streets of central Auckland and see if we can find someone of our own. Surely there must be some ex-radio folk down there somewhere.
Well, maybe homeless soon will be Hugh Laurie because he doesn't have a show anymore.
Yeah, the producers of House, David Shaw, Katie Jacobs, and Hugh Laurie, the main actor, of course, who is an executive producer as well, have announced that this season of House will be the final season. The announcement coming out late last week before the new season debuted on TV3 on Sunday night. So they're about halfway through the season in the States. They've made the announcement basically saying that House isn't a character who should be around. I think the words they used were, he shouldn't be the last one to leave the party. He should get out of there while the music is still playing.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way of looking at it. You know, I guess they consider that House is still in kind of a creative peak or near its peak. And they want to get out while the getting's good. So that's what they're doing. They've just announced halfway through the season that this will be the final season. The season 8 finale will be the series finale, and that'll be that.
Okay.
What's done is done.
No sad loss for me because I never watched it, but you know, I'm sure some people will be mourning.
I think for House fans, it will be missed. I came late to the House party. See what I did there? I came late into it, like around about the 5th season. So really, I'm not sick of the show yet. Where someone who has been in from the ground floor might be over it, but it's kind of a quick. You know, it's going before its time for me, but for any long-time fans, I think probably they would feel pretty comfortable about the way it's going. The only problem being, of course, that being a mid-season announcement, they won't have time to end the show properly, where, you know, some shows like Lost had 3 seasons to kind of finish things up and still did a bad job of it. House will have been in production. They're probably already up to episode 20 or 21 of 24 episodes, so they haven't given themselves much time to kind of wrap the show up nicely and do what they want to do properly. But on the other hand, maybe the season 8 finale is good enough to be a series final. I don't know.
Well, one would wonder whether or not the new show Would I Lie to You is going to stick around as well, because seems to be hard to nail Paul Henry down to a seat where he wants to sit for any decent length of time at the moment. But the new show just started airing this week.
It did. It started on Sunday night, and you want to know something funny? I think the comments, I blogged about this on Monday, about how it feels like Would I Lie to You, his new show, it's based on a British show of the same name. It feels like the show is only a couple of tweaks away from actually being a really good watch. It feels pretty flawed at the moment. But what I read in the comments, some of the readers who have watched the British version of the show said the British version was the same, but it got better after they changed hosts.
Huh.
Now, I wonder if Paul Henry's departure is imminent here, if he's going to Australia and he just says, see you later.
Yeah.
And then in the wake of that, they get someone else, maybe move Jesse Mulligan into the host chair. I'm a big fan of Jesse Mulligan. Or bring in someone like Paul Ego or someone like that who can do a really good job there, and then the show improves considerably. But maybe at that point, I don't know.
Let's face it, I mean, I didn't watch it, but let's face it, it's obviously a rush job, you know, like they needed to put a show together, They've got the talent, and so they needed to find a show to put the talent in, and so it's kind of a quick bang-up job just to get it on air, right?
Well, I think that's part of it, and the other problem is it started off development last year with Jesse Mulligan in the host's chair. And what happened was Paul Henry needed to have his own show, and they had Would I Lie to You already, so they thought, well, let's put those shows together, and just made Paul Henry the host. Paul Henry doesn't suit this show, if we're being completely honest. He just doesn't suit it. It's not his style. He doesn't have that kind of impromptu style that would work in a show like this. He doesn't fit in well with the other guests. It just seemed like after one episode, at least, that was the case. So maybe that was a mistake bringing him into this show, and they might change that later. I think he's out of here anyway. The first season of this will go. He won't be back for the second season because he'll be off doing a breakfast show in Australia and annoying them for a change.
Do the public agree with you about the show, though?
It seemed the comments in the blog were about 50-50. I suggested that, for people who are listening who haven't seen the show, what it is the teams, it's basically two teams of three, and they try to deceive each other by selling lies as the truth. So they make a statement which is either true or false, and then they try and make the other team believe the opposite, and you get points for if the other team thinks it's true when it's actually a lie, and vice versa. So what happens is that they basically are telling all these stories, and some of them are really far out. Now, I suggested that one of the big tweaks they could make is explain the game a little bit better, because they didn't explain it at the start of the episode. They just kind of chucked us straight in, and it took a while to figure out what was going on. And then the other thing is some of the lies were a bit too crazy. Like Robin Malcolm was on the show and had to say, she had to try and pretend that she got 3 rotisserie chickens delivered to her dressing room every morning while she was working on Outrageous Fortune. No one's going to believe that. I wouldn't have believed that. Yeah. My 10-year-old daughter wouldn't have believed that. Yeah. So there was no kind of suspense. It was pointless having that even in the show, I thought. Okay. The lies should be something that is believable as the truth.
All right.
And I just think if they can tweak that, then maybe that will fix the show. And I think the public maybe is about 50-50 agreeing with me on that.
Okay.
The other 50% think they should ditch it straight away.
Moving on. Moving on to what we shouldn't be watching because it's not here yet. The Walking Dead Season 2, Part 2.
Yeah, it's come back from its mid-season hiatus. It started Sunday night over in the States, Monday afternoon here. And I was just interested. Obviously, you and I have talked about downloading and how I've taken a vow of celibacy in that regard. And I wanted to know, though, if the second part of the season is improving on the first half of the season. There was a review earlier this week by one of my favourite TV critics, Alan Sepinwall, and basically he said that it seems like the show's in this pattern where it starts and ends well, but everything in between is a little bit dull, and that goes for each episode and for the whole season as well. So in the season, the first and last episodes are great, but in between is a bit slow, and then in each episode it's got a great opening and a great closing, but the scenes in the middle are a bit slow. And I wondered if the second half of the second season, it's confusing just thinking about it in that way, if the return from its hiatus was an improvement. Now, I asked you to have a look at it, Wammo. Did you check it out?
I did more than just look. I watched the whole thing in
okay, what did you think?
In sweet 720p as well, I must say. The first time I've gotten the bigger file. But anyway, yes, it's really hard to disagree with what he's saying, because of course at the end of we talked about this before, but at the end of the first part, there's the big finale, there's a big shootout, a whole bunch of zombies dead, and then there's a revelation. It's like, ah! Someone they'll be looking for is actually a zombie, and they're dead. And so it kicks off from there. So you got this tension right there at the beginning of the show, and he's right. Then he goes through the a little bit of this, a little bit of dialogue, and then a boom at the end, a really good finish to this first episode.
So the first episode's in line with what Sepinwall's saying, where it kind of lulls in the middle.
Yes.
Because the problem that we've got with The Walking Dead is that TV2 is showing the first half of the second season of The Walking Dead now, and they're about to enter that period where we had last week's premiere, which was really good. The zombies on the highway, they're walking around in between all the cars, and everyone's hidden under the cars, and then one gets shot at the end of the episode, their son, Carl.
Yeah.
And then we're now entering this period where they basically spend 5 episodes in the farm, and nothing happens really.
Now,
they've got these little missions that they do, and they go searching for the girl who's missing.
Yeah.
But nothing else really happens. It lulls very big until that sort of mid-season hiatus finale, which presumably TV2 won't take a break there. They'll continue straight on through.
Keep going through. Now, there was another point also where one of the characters goes off, and I'm not giving too much away, but has an accident, and you just feel like, oh, just die anyway. Yeah, I still don't really care about these characters. Just oh, yes, stupid woman, die. But now, who was the writer who was booted off or he left the series?
It was Frank Darabont. He was actually the showrunner. He was the guy in charge.
Yes.
And creative differences, I think, led to him leaving the show.
Well, so apparently he came up with a brilliant idea for the beginning of the second series, but they didn't implement it. The first episode, I think, was meant to just follow the story of... You remember back in the first series, inside the main character came across a tank in a city and ended up inside the tank to get away from the zombies? But there was a zombie inside the tank that he had to get out or shoot or did something with. Well,
he ended up shooting him and then
that's right.
Made his ears ring.
Yeah, that's right. So the first episode of the second series was meant to be the whole backstory just behind that one zombie inside that tank and how that person got to be inside that tank and their whole story about when the disease broke out and all that. Now that would have been fantastic. A complete wouldn't have progressed the story at all, but it would have added some other dimension to it that just would have been really cool. But he got shot down and he wasn't allowed to do that with the series.
Yeah, well, the idea, I did read about that. The idea was to show how kind of the apocalypse took place.
Yeah.
How everything got overrun by zombies and how, turned to crap, really. And the proof that was what he wanted to do, the guy in the tank, and can't remember his name right now because I didn't look that up. But he's actually an actor he's got a pretty impressive resume. He's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And if you knew who he was, you would say, oh, he's that guy.
Yeah.
But I can't remember his name. But that's what they did. They did do a full casting call for that part with the intention of using him again in the second season.
Yeah.
But as you say, it got shot down. I think that would have been a better way to start the second season myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of drags for me. The first half especially drags.
Yeah.
And my hope is kind of dashed hearing you say about the second part of the season starting that it hasn't improved much.
We might have to wait till season 3 for things to change up once all this feedback goes through the system. But anyway, what is coming up on TV this week?
Well, we've got a few more new shows, part of a new season. Sons of Anarchy, the 4th season of the biker gang drama starts tonight on TV3 at 9:15. That's a great show. I'm really looking forward to that. Apparently the 4th season starts really well. Doesn't really make the landing, but it's pretty good all the way through. We got Single Father on Friday on TV1 at 9:30. It's a new show starring David Tennant, who many will know as the 10th Doctor on Doctor Who. And he plays basically a dad trying to deal with 4 kids and get through life on his own. Huh. One that is a kind of an out there show that I'm going to suggest here is Persons Unknown, which is on Friday night, Saturday morning. It's at 1:15 a.m. on TV3. Now, it's a really good sci-fi show. It was meant as a mid-season replacement last year. It's got about 13 or 14 episodes, but it's a really good watch, especially if you kind of, really enjoy that fringe, Lost kind of, really serialized sci-fi. It's a really good watch for that, so it could be worth programming the My Sky units.
Cool.
We got Survivor One World starting on Sunday night at 6:30 on 4. Which is mostly notable because it's airing only 3 days behind the US.
Why is it only the crap reality shows that they get here so quickly?
And that reaction is exactly why I brought it up. And then next Tuesday is MasterChef New Zealand starts on TV1, 7:30 p.m. Say what you want about it, but I think MasterChef New Zealand is actually half entertaining, and it becomes a national obsession anyway by the time it finishes, where it's the highest rating show on TV. So
that's cool.
That's the new season of that starting next Tuesday as well.
It's got food in it. I like food. Thanks very much, Chris.
No worries.
On the Box on the radio there. You can check out On the Box blog at stuff.co.nz. Chris Philpott NZ on Twitter as well.